2014. Okay, now here are some questions that we need to begin to ask ourselves in order to take personal inventory of 2014, personal inventory of our lives. Okay, we need to ask ourselves, did I accomplish my goals and dreams? Okay, back in the beginning of 2014, what did we do? We had resolutions, we had goals. Okay, a lot of people said in 2014, I'm gonna get educated, I'm gonna go back to school. Well, did you do that? Okay, did you accomplish your goals and dreams? Okay, let me tell you, taking a personal inventory of your life is not an easy thing to do, but it's necessary if you want to move in a better direction. Okay, it may be embarrassing to look back at your failures of 2014, because personally I am embarrassed, I am ashamed of myself when I look back at the mistakes that I made in 2014. And some of those mistakes I want to cry about it, but guess what? When I look back, it gives me the strength of character to say, no more. I'm going to change that. This is no longer going to happen in my life. This is no longer going to be a part of my life. Okay? So, did you accomplish the goals that you set out to accomplish? All right? Did you give it your best shot in 2014? Were you committed? Were you committed in 2014? Did you give it your all? Did you give it your best? Did you give it your best in your marriage? Did you give it your best in your relationships with your wife, with your husband, with your kids? In 2014, did you make things, did things change for the better? What are some of the things that got better in your life that you made better for yourself? Okay? And also, what are some of the things that you're embarrassed about? You don't need to go share it with someone, but if you can jot it on a piece of paper and look at it, and then you can put a check to it and say, I'm going to change that. Okay? Taking a personal inventory of our lives requires that we look at ourselves in the mirror and decide, hey, this part of my life I don't want. Okay? In 2014, were you, let's take a look at the relationships in our lives that happened in our lives in 2014. All right? Because a lot of people are in a relationship where they're unhappy. Okay? And a lot of people are in a relationships where they're happy and things are going great. Okay? So it's important to look back at the relationships in your life, whether it's your family relationships and your friendship relationships, or your relationship with your co-workers. Yes, it's important to take a look at that, because if you want to have better relationships in 2014, 15, then you need to look back at what happened with the relationships in 2014. All right? So I look back at that, and I know, and I realize that there were some people that came in my life, and there were some people that left. Okay? There were some relationships that ended, and what did I do to end it, or what did I do to build better relationships? These are some of the questions that we need to begin to ask ourselves. Because let me tell you, if you're stuck in an unhappy relationship back in 2014, I believe that you have the power to change that. All right? And you ought to look at the friends that you made in 2014, the friends that were in your life, the people that were in your life. And you need to ask yourself, what is this relationship doing for me? What is this relationship doing to me? And most importantly, what does this relationship have me becoming? Because you are an extension of your friends. You are an extension of your relationships. There's an old saying that says, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. Okay? So it's important to look at the relationships that we had in 2014. Were they productive relationships? Were they the kind of relationships that can propel us into the future, into a better future? Or were they the kind of relationship that can hold you down? Okay? Because the relationships that you have in your life, we can have you going into one or another direction. Okay? So it's important to look at those relationships. Where do they have me going? What do they have me saying? Because oftentimes the people in your life, they will have one type of vocabulary. And if you stay around them long enough, you will start to speak the same way. You will start to act the same way. You will start to think the same way. And a wise man once says that if you hang around with losers, then you will end up a loser. And I believe that this is where our teenagers have lost their path. Our young men have lost their ways because they hang around with the losers. They hang around with the low performers. A lot of us hang around with the takers in life. A lot of us hang around the people that are not thinking clearly. So therefore, our judgment become clouded. And we can't see correctly. We can't act right. We can't think right. Why? Because we hung around the type of people that influenced us in the wrong way. There is a verse in the Bible that I know it perfectly well in French, but my English I'm still working on the English version of it. All right. And the verse says in French, la mauvaise compagnie corrompt les bonnes mœurs. The bad company will corrupt the good ones. If you take one bad apple and you put it in a barrel full of good apple, guess what? If you turn around and in 1 week, the whole barrel will spoil. Not even 1 week. Overnight, you will lose quite a few of those apples because they got corrupted overnight. Okay, so we ought to look at the people in our lives, all right, and we ought to pick up the courage to get rid of the bad ones, the ones that are not helping us, the ones that are not enabling us to do better, to go after more in life, the ones that are not helping you to push forward. Okay, recently, my wife graduated from the School of Nursing. Okay? Well, and I'm proud of her. All right? I'm proud of her for doing that. And I was a major force in her life. I was a major supporter. All right? And for years, she's been trying to accomplish that. But there were people in her life, in her past, that says, you're not smart enough to do it. And guess what? She listened. Oftentimes we listen to the people, to the naysayers in our lives. Why? Because their voices are more powerful. Their voices resonate over time. A negative comment is 16 times stronger than a positive one. So, you tell me, is it important to get rid of the naysayers in your life? Is it important to get rid of the negative people in your life? Okay? You tell me. All right? Oftentimes we want to please the world, but guess what? I believe it's important to get out of that mindset. The person that you need to please the most is the one in the mirror. The person that you owe something to is the one in the mirror. You owe it to yourself to be successful. You owe it to yourself to grow. You owe it to yourself to be better. You owe it to yourself because you were created for that purpose. You have a role to play. You have a mission to accomplish. You survive out of 20 to 40 million sperm to become you. You were chosen to be here. And we live in a time where people like you and I need to stand up and take control of our lives. Stand up and fix our lives and become the architect of our own lives and create the lives that we need, because the world needs people like you and I. You and I. The world needs people that are successful. The world needs people that are clear-minded. The world needs people that can rise and say, hey, it's time to rebuild the relationships between the people and the police. We need people that can rise like Martin Luther King and speak the language of peace, because too many people are speaking the language of war, of separation. Too many people are speaking the language of division. Too many people are speaking the language of death. It is so clear that a young man who had nothing to do with the crimes that happened in New York City between the cops and this man that was choked to death, he had nothing to do with that. But guess what? He pulled a gun and shot 2 police officers. But you have to ask yourself, those 2 police officers, were they not Americans? Were they not children of God? That man that died, wasn't he also a child of God? Okay? So I believe that it's important to look at the negativity that we experienced in 2014 and say, hey, guess what? I'm going to make a change. I'm going to think positively. I'm going to speak positively. I'm going to act positively, because you don't know. You don't know how powerful your words are. You don't know how powerful your actions are. You really don't know, because your words can go far and reach beyond generations. Your actions can do the same. Okay? And today, I want my words, I want this show, I want my voice on the Voice of the Guardian to be the voice that reaches you and say, hey, let's make peace, because enough is enough. We've lost too many of our brothers and sisters, whether they were part of the public or part of the police. Too many of us have been brutalized. Let's change that. Let's speak the language of peace. Okay, but you can't do that. You cannot do that if you're hanging out with the violent folks in your life. They gotta go. Okay, so in 2014, it's important to look back, to look at the people that are part of our lives. I don't care what title they carry, whether they are mother, they carry the title of mom, pops, husband, wives, friends, acquaintances, classmate, workmate, whatever. It's important to look at all those relationships, all those people, and then decide, hey, whichever one has to go, it has to go, because the negative ones will hold you back. Okay? I believe it's also important to look at not just your surrounding, but it's also important to look at yourself. Okay, have you been a negative person in 2014? Not only you can answer that question, okay, by looking at the events in your life, the stuff that you said to yourself or you said to others. All right, I believe that changes in the world happen, number one, on a personal level, by changing the person in the mirror, by criticizing the person in the mirror. I believe that if more of us looked at the person in the mirror and we act on that person and say, hey, you're the one that needs to be changed. You're the one that needs to get better before I can try to impact the world. Okay, so it's important, I believe, that we look at how our thought process, our actions in 2014. It's important to do that, don't you think? It's important to look at what you did, okay? Whether it was a success or whether it was a flop, okay? Whether it was positive or negative, Okay? Whose lives did you impact? Did you have an impact on positively or negatively?